Welcome to another episode of the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. I'm Ashley Bastock, joined by Mary Kay Cabot from a very summery looking location out in Phoenix, Arizona for the NFL owners meeting. As Dan said last week, he is off this week. So enjoy some Olsen Twins podcasts from us this week. We're very excited. Mary Kay, let's start with today. Out in Phoenix, you heard from Kevin Stefanski. What was the big news? What did Kevin have to say, since this is the first time really we've gotten to hear from him since the combine?
Well, we really grilled him a whole lot about Deshaun Watson, where Deshaun is at right now, where his mindset is right now, just how he feels about the acquisitions, what he's up to, what he's doing. And, there were some pretty interesting things there. He's hosting teammates in Houston. I think that will really be beneficial and help these guys out a lot. So that might happen as soon as next week. Some of them have been in and out already, but that's something that will be happening. And then Kevin talked about he will have, more authority at the line of scrimmage to kind of do his own thing a little bit this year, now that he's got the lay of the land. He's very, very excited about the 3 pass catchers that they have added to this team in Elijah Moore, Marquis Goodwin, and Jordan Akins. So really, I consider that to be kind of almost an overhaul of the pass catching core. Not only did they add some smaller, agile, shiftier guys, but then you get another big body in Jordan Akins. So this whole offseason has basically been about, sort of the making of a champion in Deshaun.
Yeah, and it was interesting, and we'll get to what Andrew Berry told you yesterday in a little bit, but it just seems like the optimism around this offense is even higher with these new free agency additions than, it already was. Because they were, kind of talking up how much better they thought Deshaun would be when we talked to Andrew and Kevin at the Combine. But I am really struck by what these two think of these new pass catching additions. And I guess we've talked about it, but what do you think was key for them in finding these new pieces to get around Deshaun? What was the perfect storm? What were they looking for? What are some commonalities with these guys?
Well, in the first 2 guys, the receivers, in Elijah Moore, the trade with the Jets, and then Marquis, who was signed as a free agent, speed was the name of the game. They added much needed speed to this offense. It's an element that Deshaun needs. I mean, he's got incredible arm talent. He's got dual threat ability, and he needs people that can match up to what he can do. And now he's got the speed to go along with those excellent receivers and route runners in Amari Cooper, Donovan Peoples-Jones, big-bodied guy in David Njoku. Now he's got those, shifty, agile guys too. And basically the thing to remember about Elijah Moore and Marquis Goodwin. Marquis is the vertical stretch, the go route guy. Now, even though Kevin Stefanski emphasized today that Elijah Moore can be that downfield guy as well, really he's a little bit more of your Tyreek Hill, kind of all over the field, get the ball in your hands and get some good run after catch, make plays all over. Whereas he's not necessarily the full-time go route guy. That's more going to be Marquis. So they have a little bit of everything. I think the thing to remember here is that they kind of have a surplus now in the pass catching realm. And there are going to be some guys that are going to have to really step it up to get some playing time. I mean, you look at, the David Bells, and, he's probably the one that comes to mind the most. But, even some of the other younger guys, Michael Woods, what's going to happen with Anthony Schwartz. But, now they actually kind of have a surplus in the room.
It is interesting to me that this distinction, and we heard it from both Kevin Stefanski this week and Andrew Berry, between Marquis Goodwin and Elijah Moore and their skill sets. And I mean, you kind of touched on it there, but it's interesting to me that there's them pointing out this difference, that Marquis is the guy who they think can stretch the field. I guess pointing out the difference between these types of speeds, because to me, it's they really didn't have either of these kind of guys on the roster last year. So, I mean, just how different do we think that is going to make this offense?
I think it will make it completely different. I really do. I think that, that even Kevin Stefanski said today when we were asking him about Marquis Goodwin, he said, the minute that Marquis Goodwin gets off the bus, the DBs know that they're going to be covering a lightning quick, world-class track athlete, and they're going to have to bring their speed game. They're going to have to be able to keep up with that. Now, again, he was drafted in 2013, but back then he ran a 4.27. I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah.
So, he can still fly. And even when you heard Pete Carroll last year talk about him, he talked about him in that regard, that he can fly. So I think the addition of speed to this offense was much needed. And I think it's really going to help them a whole lot.
And the other two things I know I wanted to get